You know what that sound means. Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live episode 91.
What?
100 is within striking distance. Can you believe it? I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Tasia Custodi.
I'm Gray Williams, and I am shocked. Like 91, the most 69 actually was the most episode I done on the Platformers podcast. We stopped there, and we were 26.
Nice.
But 91. Wow.
Apparently, most podcasts don't last beyond 3 episodes, and there's some other stats. So we're technically part of the top 1 percentile in terms of longevity. So
other podcasters want to eat us for monopolizing that amount of. I got it. It's good.
Exactly. If you want to find out more about us, you can visit us at momentous.tv/links. And there you'll find links to all the socials. And then you can browse around our website, which we haven't updated in a bit. But there's more coming very soon, I swear. Oh, it's so close. We can taste it.
That's all I want for Christmas.
All right. So let's get into it with starting with a little bit of follow-up. And once again, you know, it's another one of those days where this is all coming together at the last minute. And where is my browser? There it is. Oh my goodness.
Episode 91. Wrestle this.
Oh, you're cutting out, Gray. I hate to say it. Oh dear. That's okay. So let's bring up our first little bit of follow-up. And this is a Gray story. Gray, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You know, of course, we've been following all the Twitter nonsense for the last several months. And, you know, people have been exploring other options. And we did a bit of a, we talked a fair bit about Mastodon, you and I, a couple of weeks ago. And I just wanted to include a little follow-up article, which from Ars Technica, sort of asking the question, with all these people flocking to Mastodon, how secure is it really? And we discussed how it has a bit of a different model. It's a federated model where people have to spool up their own server instances. And it's becoming quite popular. The policies, the behavior policies, the terms of use vary from instance to instance, from server to server. So it's good to find a server where you feel at home. Servers can cut themselves off from other servers in the Mastodon Fediverse. So you may or may not see things from all of the servers. So it's a little different than some of the monolithic social platforms that people are used to, such as Facebook, Twitter, and the like. So the quick recap of this article, and if those are interested who are Mastodon curious, it's worth having a look because it's always good to just know what you're getting into. Mastodon's been around for about 6 years ago and has proved itself in a number of ways. It's yet to really take the world by storm, but a lot of people are checking it out, especially those who have been a little disillusioned by what's been going on with Twitter for the last while. Some people have gone to Mastodon and then come back to Twitter. It's interesting. So basically the article ends with some basic guidelines for any social platform that you might be exploring. And Gray, in those basic guidelines, any thought, do you mind just recapping? So, because I'm going to be talking a lot as it comes. So why don't you recap some of the basic guidelines for exploring Mastodon and any other social platform?
For sure. So looking at your account creation, looking at your account creation, you want to do a couple of things. One, have a unique account name and password. Password generator, like 1Password can help. 2FA can also help. I've got a Yipee key that I'm using with mine. I'm trying to keep this a little bit more secure than Twitter. So it's a really great way to have a 2-factor that isn't connected to your cell phone number. It's not a problem for like things like SIM jacking and stuff like that. Looking at this as well is also making sure that your email is secure if you're using that as your password recovery for Mastodon. The thing that sort of stood out most to me, though, is look at the server that you are looking to sign up for, because all these sorts have different policies, and yes, those policies govern you on that particular server. But as you're connected to the Mastodon network, these servers can have more permissions than you might want them to. So really understand who's running the server. What do their philosophies align with yours? Take a look at the other users that are on the server to see and make sure that you've got sort of your head in the game as to why you're on that server. Mastodon's been it's very interesting because Twitter was sort of one of the first really big Web 2.0 properties that managed to do the centralizing thing. This is one of the first Web 3.0 properties that's going to do the same thing but decentralized. So, Mastodon right now, if you haven't got a Mastodon account, probably a good time to try it out again. Go from curious to full-fledged. But yeah, set it up properly. Use a password protector, 2FA, and know who you're getting into.
And then toot away, as they say. Although they're getting away from toots now, which makes me a little sad.
That was the one thing where I'm like, oh yeah, that right. Okay.
Instead of tweet, let's toot. Now, Tasia, you, as far as I recall, you have not dipped your toe in the Mastodon toot waters. Can you recall any social platforms that you heard of, being in that, having been in this space for a long, long time, that that you heard was going to be the next big thing, and that you actually set up an account and tried it out for a bit, and then it didn't really go anywhere?
Hello, Clubhouse.
Oh,
don't y'all remember my obsession with Clubhouse? I screamed it from the rooftops. And listen, it was great. I'm sure it still is, but I did not have the time to sit on an app all day and like join random, as much as I wish I could, and like join random conversations. Like I have to work. So it became almost like counterproductive to me. Do you know what I mean? Like the first few weeks was really cool and great, and I couldn't believe it. And like I'm getting to listen to all this advice from other creators or whatever, but like entrepreneurs. But then it was like, wait, I have to actually run my business. I can't just listen to these things all day, like during the day when I am working. And because
the march of the crypto bros and the real estate agents,
you had to be there. Yeah, exactly. You had to be there or you missed it. That FOMO, boy, I can only keep up for a couple weeks, I'll tell you. It's still on my phone. I saw it the other day, way back on another screen. And I was like, oh, I had moved her. I demoted her screen by screen. So I don't know if I delete it or just let her sit as an homage to a time in my life, 3 weeks of my life.
Well, that's an interesting thing. You gendered that app. You moved her.
I
know. I wonder, like, if other apps had genders, what would they be for another time? For sure.
Exactly.
That's like a whole other show. I think we should do. Yeah. And why?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we all know what 4chan is. So let's. So we have to credit Clubhouse for actually inspiring us in the midst of the pandemic to do this live version of Momentous. So there's that, and then of course Clubhouse inspired Twitter Spaces, which is kind of in limbo at the moment as well. And the Twitter Spaces team kind of got gutted with the layoffs at Twitter. So we'll see how that goes. I think that was the problem with Clubhouse, is that it was more of a feature than a platform. And it could be easily replicated by Twitter, and other Facebook and others, if there was enough of a market there. Some people are still religious Clubhouse users, but just
the legacy lives on. The restaurant down the street has a sandwich named after it.
Delete your account. Another little bit of follow-up. This is something, again, we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Not great, Bob, with the going back from one Bob to another. Bob Chapek out as the CEO of Disney, and Bob Iger, former CEO of Disney, he's the chairman of the board as well, but stepping back in as CEO for a couple of years to find another replacement. And we touched very briefly on some of the reasons there. I just wanted to recommend a great podcast, the Vergecast. Actually, it was Decoder, which is also from The Verge, and a great explainer of providing more background information on the whole situation. And it turns out it wasn't simply the financial results. There were some other internal cultural things happening at Disney under Bob Chapek's reign. And some of that had to do with him trying to convert Disney to a functional organization, sort of like how Apple is organized, whereby they have a single P&L for the entire company, whereas previously you had each different division with its own P&L. And as such, each division was given a lot more creativity, and they had a lot more quicker decision making. With the consolidation of the P&Ls, it really increased the layers of approvals and slowed things down. So there's more to the story. So I recommend anyone who's at all interested in the the criminology of Disney and the backroom dramas behind the ousting of Bob Chapek, to have a listen to Decoder. You can find it in your podcast app and check out the episode about the shake-up at Disney. Very interesting stuff. Unfortunately, Will's not here to give his comment on that, being an adult Disney fan.
Well, so the one thing that I'll say, at this point, Iger is an interim CEO.
Yes.
So he's an ICEO. He's Iger. I think Will's just said that he's really hoping to go for coffee with it. He said he will tell us all about Bob being. I can't say that.
Nope. He's telling us private comments that we can't say. I will.
Well, I don't. Where you guys are getting messages from Will? How come I'm not?
It's in the chat. You look like on the right hand side. It says chat.
That chat.
We have somebody watching. We have
public
somebody
chat.
watching this.
We have you guys never seen the chat going? You're not looking at the numbers?
Yes, I see it over on the right side.
Normally our chat, and don't everybody get ideas at once. Normally our chat are very inappropriate bots. Tonight it's one upset William Silva.
I have a few friends chime in over here. I guess some of my friends are inappropriate bots, so that's fine. That's right.
So now let's move on to some news stories. We've been collecting here in the Momentous dossier a whole bunch of AI related stories over the last couple of months, and we've done theme shows on cars and on social media and on gadgets. We're going full AI this time because there's a number of stories that have come out, and this seems to really be the year of consumer facing AI. So it's AI's come out of a lot of the research towers into the public domain where people can experiment. Sometimes you have to jump through a few hoops. Some of these platforms you have to pay for access. Some they'll let you play around for free. So what I'm going to do, we're going to do to start here is just show a few quick platforms that have come up in the last couple of months. Then we're going to talk about a couple of stories, and then we're going to talk about a few platforms that just regular folks can access without having to pay, and then a couple of issues that these raise, some of which we've touched on before. So, Tasia, Gray, you ready? Okay.
Ready.
Okay, buckle up. So one platform is Imagen. So that is, who is this even from again? But it's unprecedented photorealism with deep level of language understanding. So similar to what we've seen with DALL-E, DALL-E 2, DALL-E Mini, which is now called Crayon with the AI instead of A in the middle, and Midjourney, which is accessible through Discord, and Stable Diffusion, which is a no holds bar image generator, and Diffusion B, which is a client you can download to your own device rather than processing in the cloud. This is another project called Imagen from the Google Research Brain team, and it's got its own kind of take on this and really interesting results coming out here. Everything from a transparent sculpture of a duck made out of glass to an Android mascot made from bamboo. It's in this website at imagen.research.google. It has all the technical hoosafudge that if you're interested in, you could go and have a look. But it's really using the power of Google's natural language processing and deep learning to generate some of these things. And now this is a research only, not available to the general public, at least at this point. And then next up, we've got Dream Fusion, which takes things a step further, where we do a text input and it creates 3D images using 2D diffusion. So we punch in something like a wide angle zoomed out DSLR photo of a skiing penguin wearing a puffy jacket. And not only do you see a static image from one angle, you can see a 3D rendered object that will show you from a variety of angles. So we can see these tools are getting more and more sophisticated. And this stuff has been coming fast and furious over the last number of months. So not to be outdone, of course, everyone's favorite, Meta, they have their own AI division, of course, and they have something called Make a Video, whereby not only could it, are we talking generating images or 3D images, but actually full-on videos. So you could have a teddy bear painting a portrait, a robot dancing in Times Square, a cat watching TV with a remote in hand. And of course, oh, that hand is the nightmare fuel right there.
The human hand.
That's the human hand. Oh boy.
That's the sequel to Cats right there.
Oh, where's Dame Judi Dench when you need her?
It's Jellicle.
How about a fluffy baby sloth with an orange knitted hat trying to figure out a laptop close-up, highly detailed studio lighting screen reflecting in its eye? So here's an example of the more detailed your text prompt, the more detailed and desirable the end image tends to be. Then they've also got it so you can't instead of just doing text input, you could also do image inputs, and it will analyze what it sees in the image and make a video from that too. And some of these are akin to cinemagraphs that we saw a few years ago, which are a type of animated GIF, which only certain parts of the image tend to move. But again, this is opening up all sorts of interesting creative outlets for people just using the power of descriptive text or even other images. And then we've got another one here called Phenaki, Phenaki, where, again, each of these tends to have their own styles and their own quality of results. There are so many competing projects. Right now, here we've got a photorealistic teddy bear is swimming in the ocean at San Francisco. The teddy bear goes underwater. The teddy bear keeps swimming under the water with colorful fishes. A panda bear is swimming underwater. Oh, and there's the panda. So, it's got multiple inputs for a single image there. And again, we're seeing different qualities of results. Again, producing video. So we're going to take a breath at that point, because all of these things have their own implications. Tasia, your first reaction. So we've talked in the past about some of those other ones we mentioned, those other tools. Have you had a chance to play around with those, or are you intrigued by what we're seeing here, especially when it comes to 3D models and or video?
It all scares me, and my first reaction is, wow.
Okay.
And then my second reaction is, I can't wait until John Oliver gets a video made.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you guys watch his show.
Oh yeah,
he's been doing his
all the cabbages.
Yeah, all the cabbages. Yeah, having and that's just
cabbage.
And that's just still images. Just wait until we're getting video of 3D images or
exactly
video of John Oliver. Gray, I know you've talked about the potential for rapid prototyping of designs here. What do you think the addition of 3D and or full motion video adds to the mix for creative types?
Well, so this is kind of fascinating, because if we look at it, in VFX right now, there is a dearth of talent. There's not enough going around. And looking at things that they're doing with Blender and a few other programs, they've kind of eased the pipeline for humans to create video. With something like this, if you were able to get the AI to figure out, okay, this is our character and this is how we want to do it, your modeler now is basically like somebody who's commanding language, like English as opposed to a programming language. So there's that aspect to it. The other thing as well is, like, I think this is actually good for teaching people like you, and as I'm starting getting into more content creation, people like me, because I think it adds more value to the human component. In the past, we've kind of looked at 3D as production value, right? If this thing has shiny, flashy, we saw the commoditization of this with things like Fiverr, right? Here, go make me a logo that spins, done, right? Now it comes down to, what, as someone on camera, can you do for the audience that this can't do? And I think it's really going to separate the wheat from the chaff in that respect, basically placing more value on the human interaction rather than the machine interaction. Deepfakes kind of throw that a little bit, right? But I think, with live video, it's probably going to have something that's going to be a little bit more impactful. And I think, again, we're going to have this sort of, it's enriching interactions as opposed to just presentation. That make sense?
So speaking of deepfakes, that's another whole aspect of this now. We've seen deepfake experiments done over the years. We've had Jordan Peele voicing Barack of a deepfake of Barack Obama, for example. We've seen in movie productions versions of the late Carrie Fisher or the not yet late Mark Hamill playing younger versions of themselves in various Star Wars movies and TV shows. Now we're getting to the point of a couple months ago where Bruce Willis is retiring from acting due to a condition he has. And a story came out not too long afterward that apparently he has given permission for his image to be used in maybe advertising or perhaps other TV shows or movies. And there is something called Deepcake, which has been using his image. Now, it's still a little murky. Here we see a commercial, I believe it looks like it's from Eastern Europe, maybe even Russia, starring Bruce Willis, deepfake there, but it's not actually Bruce Willis. Then there's a follow-up story saying, actually, he never sold his image rights to this or any other company as of yet. So,
the deepfake him sold it.
Exactly. So we're getting into some murky territory here, especially when it comes to international rights. So there was an update, but just 2 months ago now, Deepcake. So where the Deepcake's PR team clarified, well, they never claimed the actor sold us his image rights and didn't provide any comments of the sorts. The information is not correct. There's no regulatory framework allowing people to sell rights to identity. So if that's the case, why are they using his image? That's another question altogether. Now, Tasia, who of the various actors, singers, perhaps, would you be most interested in seeing their careers extended through the use of deepfake technology powered by AI, deep learning, machine learning, beyond their ability to actually do so, either due to illness, as in the case of Bruce Willis, or due to death? Can you think of anyone that you'd like to see continue?
Well, I know who you want me to say, my queen. However,
Queen Elizabeth II?
The whole thing just
agreed.
She's got a really good voice. No. The whole thing freaks me out. Like, I just don't like it. Like, you guys have seen all the Tom Cruise ones, right? Like, it's just crazy. But it's it just creeps me out to the point of like, it right now you can still tell, but it's going to get very quickly to a space where it's going to be very hard to tell like what's real and what's not, and how do we navigate that, and how do the people who are being deepfaked navigate that. It creeps me out. It really does. I have to draw the line.
So we've seen, I guess, variations, a little different, sanctioned variations on this theme with holographic appearances of late artists, such as Tupac, for example. But those have been done with the participation of the estate. And yeah, it's kind of it's this weird sort of digital immortality that we're seeing. There was a TV commercial a few years ago with the likeness of Audrey Hepburn in it too, which was a little uncanny valley. So as these technologies get better and better, it's going to start to get a little weird in terms of, especially when we talk about public figures like politicians, videos of public figures saying things that maybe could impact the state of the world as regards economics, war, and the like.
Yep.
Any thoughts on the potential dangers as these AI powered technologies like deepfakes gain more and more sophistication and power, Gray?
I mean, yes, absolutely. And interestingly enough, that was a plot point on Star Trek Discovery. Right, Control in the second season was holographically representing certain figures in Starfleet Command, which is the reason they gave why the Enterprise, after that submitted by Pike, doesn't have the holographic system. He didn't trust it, so he ripped them all out. Really great way to retrofit that particular retcon that. Pardon me. But looking at this, the one thing that I was thinking is, this is an interesting technology that can be used to help create good moments in art. But I think it has to be limited, right? Looking at Peter Cushing in Rogue One or Carrie Fisher in Rogue One, they weren't great, but they were brief, right? And so when you're looking at things like prequels or, we need that cameo, this should never be a main character. But if you need that little bit to basically move the plot along or move the story along, I think that's a really great way to use this. I would like to see limits on it. 30 seconds, a minute most, advance the plot, get out of that character's way. That makes sense. Fully, deepfake stuff, it's lazy. Let people die.
How about a deepfake Mark Zuckerberg disrobing from his...
He is one.
Disrobing from his attire as Monopoly Man. So there was a video that was circulating just about a week ago, whereby he was thanking some politicians for their service and inaction on antitrust. And again, there's a remarkable deepfake there. You know it's a deepfake because it says #FakeZuck. The beginning of the video shows the actual actor you're playing him, but then I believe there's the deepfake voice and of course the video. So we're seeing all sorts of different versions of this coming out. We're getting to the point now where there's even there's someone making an entire movie using video generated by AI. That movie is called Salt, and I think we will be seeing that next year. We've even seen things like generation of deepfake audio. A few weeks ago, there was a deepfake interview by quote unquote Joe Rogan of quote unquote Steve Jobs, which was making the rounds, which was, if you listen to it, it was kind of interesting. It was quite obviously cribbed from some of the statements that, or variations of statements that Steve Jobs had made, throughout his career. And public figures have so much to draw from, whether they're politicians or, tech CEOs or, actors and actresses. So I think the ones that are at most risk are the ones who have the most out there in terms of their voice and of their image. But yeah, the deepfake interview was like, oh yeah, if you're not paying attention, yeah, that sounds like a real interview. It's like some people kind of either didn't realize or forgot Steve Jobs has been dead for 11 years. And if you weren't really paying attention, it's like, oh, wow, he's doing interviews again. Okay, that's interesting. But then when you start listening closely, it's like, oh yeah, it was a little bit vague, a little bit general. And but again, it's just a matter of time before these things get better and better. Gray, who would you most like to see an interview with from beyond the grave, thanks to deepfake technology?
That's a good question. It would be interesting to see John F. Kennedy.
Oh,
because that was a pivot point in American history and a pivot point in the world. And 1963, 6 years later, we go to the moon. This week we went back. And I'd like to hear his thoughts. We choose these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. We choose to go to the moon. We went, we stopped. What do you think, John? We're looking at this. We're looking at the Russians who, you were right up against. It was just down in the minute. Here we are. What do you think? Like, I just love to know, his view on this world would be interesting.
So further to these sorts of AI related stories, we have, again, our favorites at Meta. They've designed an AI agent called Cicero that negotiates, persuades, and cooperates with people. So this isn't merely aping an existing person and having a fake interview with them. This is an AI that has been deployed to play the game Diplomacy. So Diplomacy is I don't think I've played it myself, but it's kind of like if the game Risk wasn't made purely for terrible people. So it's a game where instead of just like rolling dice, no, I love Risk and played it lots growing up, but at the end of the day, a lot of it's just like rolling dice and then yelling at each other. So Diplomacy, in order to get ahead, my understanding of that game is that you actually have to persuade people, reason with them, build alliances and the like in a more sophisticated way than a game like Risk. So they've trained this AI from Meta of all networks, of all platforms, to play this game. And so this is not simply a deterministic game like, like chess or checkers or Go, which was remarkable. Google's AlphaGo project, Go was such a complicated game, and people found that it was using strategies that humans never even thought of or couldn't even understand. So if now we're getting to the point where humans can start persuading people, you combine that with a little deep fake technology, then, oh boy. Tasia, are you even more comfortable with the notion of AI getting more and more powerful? Because if not,
I'm gonna
I've
have
got an AI
nightmares
that can
tonight.
persuade you.
I'm legit. This is going to infiltrate my dreams tonight, and that's what they want.
She's not wrong. She's not wrong.
So
I'm just saying.
So one of the quotes from the current world champion of diplomacy, Andrew Goff, said, "A lot of human players will soften their approach, or they'll start getting motivated by revenge. And Cicero, which is Meta's AI, never does that. It just plays the situation as it sees it. So it's ruthless in executing to its strategy, but it's not ruthless in a way that annoys or frustrates other players." So it's obviously
like Yul Brenner.
So it's obviously ingested How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So it gets weirder and weirder. Now, in addition to some of the obvious issues, go ahead.
This draws its name from a Roman poet, philosopher, like someone who was famous for this. Also, not the brand name Future Shop's in-house building your own computers, which I think I had a lot of
Cicero. Oh, right.
Right.
I remember that brand.
Well, they were well named because when they went wrong, you really had to sort of have a good dialogue and do some diplomacy with the customer, and they went wrong quite often. So
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
All right. So all of these, AI platforms, the way that they tend to be powered is through data sets that they ingest that are available on the web, or sometimes from private data sets of text transcripts, images, video, audio, and the like. Now, we've briefly touched on some of the issues that represents, is that the consent that is not given by the creators of said data that gets swept up in all of this. And one acute example of this is there's one illustrator, her name was Holly Mengert, who found a Reddit thread where all sorts of illustrations were being posted in her style, but they were not actually created by her. And when she went and looked at them, she's like, "Oh yeah, I see how they're kind of resemble myself, but they're not choices I would have made here." But you can see the on the left, we've got some actual artwork by Holly Mengert, and it seems there's a lot of Disney related stuff and Marvel. And we have examples such as Little Mermaid and Thor, and maybe Princess and the Frog, maybe Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast at the end. And then we've got some others, including Wonder Woman, which is in the DC universe, and some other creatures I don't recognize. Looks like an elfin variant of Thor there. But to the untrained eye, it's like, oh, well, she's doing she's branching out a little bit and doing some more. But this isn't her at all. And she's like, I never gave anyone permission to use my style. Now, you could say, well, any artist could, is influenced by other artists before them, be they visual artists or cinematographers or musicians. Mm-hmm. So how is this any different aside from the scale and the velocity at which this is being done? Tasia, as a creator yourself, what are your thoughts on this? How comfortable would you be in having works generated by AI that were in the style of Tasia Custodi? I mean, we might get to it that someone could push a button, type in some stuff and ask for a Tasia Custodi video on that topic. How does that make you feel now?
Again, it creeps me out.
Get my gun.
It's like I did all the work. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong. You grew all of this. Yeah.
And then instead, you could just type in a few prompts, hit a key. I'd be very upset if I was like an artist and came across that.
It's kind of interesting. If you look at this, like, is there a way of hashing stuff? A certain set of steps that creates an image or a look. And is that then used, by the AI as it's creating it to then, give attribution to the original creator? This is kind of where some of the blockchain stuff came from, where it's like, as you're passing things along, it's sent all the way back to the people who created it. Good in theory. And so if somebody wants a Tasia Custodi original, you can supply the pieces. Question is, like, do you want AI Tasia Custodi saying the things that maybe you wouldn't? Probably not. Are there ways to put that restrictions in there? So for hashing all this stuff, a system that has those rules could actually do that for you. Problem is, rules are meant to be broken. Systems are meant to be broken by AI. It's just, you're right, we're done.
But let's think this through here.
Straight up.
Let's think this through, this possible business models. We could all have our own OnlyFans channels without actually having to debase ourselves.
Well, that's no fun.
Hey, secure the bag,
Really?
money, whatever.
That's right.
If I'm going to do it, I'm going to make money for it. Likewise. Let's be clear here.
So, one of the things that we're starting to see, partly in response to this, or just as a natural evolution and maturity, and again, this is all happening at such a breakneck pace. We're seeing companies like Shutterstock, and I just saw a story today where with Adobe doing this as well, whereby they're starting to feature AI generated stock imagery that people could purchase. So the Shutterstock is using DALL-E. Getty Images is getting into the act as well. Now there's no. With the Shutterstock one, they actually want to compensate artists, but the compensation is like, how do you compensate the inspiration of the generative models that are creating this work? Do you say a given image is 30% of Tasia Custodi and 15% Van Gogh and another 25% of Marvel Cinematic Universe as directed by VFX artists in Vancouver or whatever? Like, I don't know how you do the math on that, but at least they're trying. Gray, do you have something to add there?
Well, it's curious thing because, like, if they are generating this stuff, it's through the database and the triggers, right? And so the question then becomes, are you able to look at what they use to generate an image and then start to reverse engineer the language that they're using to do this? Because realistically speaking, these guys this is rent seeking straight up, right? Work's been done. It's generative, but you're not doing it. You're basically just taking money for everybody else's work. And it's one that they've built, the Adobe CC thing that sits in my window and close it. It's like, please don't close me. But
please don't close me.
Right. Are they really adding value? I don't really know that they are.
Asia, would you feel better about these sorts of systems if you were to receive some sort of acknowledgement and or payment?
Well, my thing was kind of going back to what Gray was saying, where like I can see in the future like the original pieces, plural, that were used to make, like, say something goes viral. I can see like those being worth more, like in value, let's say. But it goes back to that, is like, how do you trace back to that? How do you ensure you own the rights to that like original work? It's just so murky to me. It's crazy.
So just as a little bit of a thought experiment here, or maybe a little bit of devil's advocate, if artists that are included in the data set that's informing the AI and producing these generative works, if they're somehow credited and acknowledged and like hashed, tagged, whatever you want to call it, might there not be a way to gain exposure for maybe lesser known artists, similar to how we see in music nowadays, where an artist gets sampled and then a lot of people go back and explore works by said artist? Now, a bad example, but it's coming just to the top of my head. It's like, let's say someone hears, whatever that one of Eminem's first hits, and it has the chorus by Dido in there. And that was weird because that Dido song had come out not that long before the Eminem one. But a lot of people probably went, oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder who that artist is. And they went and checked out Dido. Or you may have, say, in the early 80s, you've got Planet Rock by African Bambaataa, where he's sampling Kraftwerk and kicking off the whole like electro phase of hip hop. And people are like, what is that? What is that sample? It's sick. It's like, oh, well, that's Kraftwerk. Maybe a whole bunch of people are getting into Kraftwerk because of that. We see those sorts of things over and over and over again. So
this ties in perfectly my pick of the week. So I'm excited to talk about it.
So Tasia, does that make you a bit more comfortable, given that you might not only get credit, but you may also that also might be a vector for discovery of an artist's work?
No, I want to own my work.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be your work if it's if they're generating new stuff that's based on your style, right? Resistance is futile.
I like it. Because the thing is, if you think of it right now, like if someone becomes a meme, right? You think of like Ghislaine Raza, the Star Wars lightsaber kid. Did he make bank out of that? Not enough. But in the future, if you did something that then became something like part of a mimetic reproduction or became part of a new product, and you got paid for it, like even it's fractions of a penny, like Office Space style, like this you make tons of great content and get paid for all of that, and then suddenly there's this thing that just goes.
But you're touching on something that we've talked about before in terms of the importance of like opting into that, because like a meme is a perfect example. So like that fire starter girl meme, as an example. Remember the building on fire in the background, and she was like this little girl. Yeah. I mean, she's a grown adult now and like has no ownership of her own autonomy. People took that image and ran with it. And so that's like a whole other issue, I believe.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. In a system where people do get paid for things like this, there's now the structure in place to do that. Right. And I think it does actually have to go down to like the hashing of the actual image itself, the digital fingerprint, which, now we're back into digital rights management and
NFT.
Yeah, but hey, listen,
NFTs.
If you can blur your house on Google Maps. In my mind,
you can't blur it on 4chan. That's the thing. Is like, well, like a lot of these things.
I don't want this piece of content.
Yeah. But yeah,
that's
so
like we killed the 4chan.
So a lot of this is assuming that we're dealing with good actors here. Now, given that the genie's kind of out of the AI bottle, or the AI genie's out of the bottle now, not everyone is going to be a Google or a Meta as much as you trust them, or universities with reputations to defend. You could have bad actors. You could have state actors from hostile states that are using this technology against us, and they're not asking for anybody's permission. They're not giving everyone credit, and their job might be just to create chaos. The last thing we need is a video of Tasia Custody saying we're firing nukes on Russia. Because then people will be
we're talking hostile states like Alabama. I've driven through there. It's not good.
But that's the thing, is that's that gray area of like, why do you think any third-party company, independent company, can sell merch of name the celebrity, name the politician, blah 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 blah, with the likeness of an individual? Because if you're in the public eye, people, like, they're allowed to use your likeness. So where do we draw that line then in terms of, well, I don't want my image, whether it's an AI generated image or video, I don't want my likeness on that message.
You've hit it on the head. It's got to be built into the core of the system as that system's built out, right? This is me. Don't want me there. Click, flagged out, done. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in this notion of intellectual property and copyright as regards AI, there's an article we'll include in the show notes from The Verge, and it's called "The Scary Truth About AI Copyright Is Nobody Knows What Will Happen Next." And it touches on some of the things that we've been talking about, including the experimentation with crediting, compensation, and whatnot of these artists. So now we're going to get into a few things that we can play with as users to help ourselves understand some of these tools and the power they have, and just like how scary good some of this is. But to start, I want to start with a scary bad example. This is something that I ran a few weeks ago and I've just been hanging on to. I was hoping that Will would be here, that we could share it all together, but we're going in, we're talking about this issue, and it is something called summarize.tech. And this is a website where, a very simple website where you can go and plug in a URL for a YouTube video, and it will either use the transcript or listen to it and make a summary of the video. And this is, so I ran in episode 80 of Momentous Live, St. Elon's Fire. And I'm just going to read you some of the...
Was this the one that was blocked?
No, it wasn't. That was Dynamic Island. So I should have done it for the blocked one. So here's some of the stuff that the AI came up with after listening to us ramble on for an hour. St. Elon's Fire. So it was called St. Elon's Fire because this was about Elon Musk, and I don't even remember what we talked about. St. Elon's Fire is a rock band from Canada who recently released a new album. They filmed a live show at the Park Row Mall in North Vancouver, but the mall was closed. The woman working there was very helpful, and Tristan decided to go to the Capilano Mall. Another mall in North Vancouver was also open, but the lady there was not as helpful. So this is me talking about trying to activate my iPhone 14 Pro. And
yes,
this is amazing.
I remember this.
So now it's a rock band. St. Elon's, blah, 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 blah. They recently released a new album, and their live show was filmed for a YouTube video. One of their locations, the Park Row Mall in North Vancouver, was closed when Tristan and Greg attempted to visit it, and the woman working, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's go on a little further. St. Elon's Fire is a live-action role-playing game where players control characters to fight against evils. Players can customize their characters' appearances and interact with the game's dynamic island.
Oh my god!
Excuse me, wait, you've skipped over something really fun.
Okay.
One of the app's developers, ki-yA, and they spell everything correctly. This is very exciting. I'm an app developer, according to this.
Oh, we're just getting to that, yeah. Talks about some of the app's features and how they've changed since the early days. They also discuss the popularity of GPUs for mining cryptocurrencies and the declining importance of mining in the current market. Finally, they discuss whether people are choosing to play games at 4K or 1440p because of the extra horsepower required. So there are moments of lucidity in there, wrapped in a whole lot of like bafflegab. I don't even know
this is what I want to sound like when I get older. Moments of lucidity and then just mind blown.
Right?
Okay, in this video, go ahead.
The frontman Rivian,
discusses the new adventure network called St. Elon's Fire. It keeps going back to St. Elon's Fire. Rivian is excited about the network, which will have three 500 chargers installed nationwide. Rivian also talks about the growth of electric vehicles and how the switch to electric vehicles is not only good for the environment, but also for the repairability and replaceability of battery cells. Again, yes, that's stuff that kind of makes sense. But what was the stuff at the beginning? Like... Anyhow,
I do like the fact though that the YouTube user St. Elon's Fire is going to get his iPhone 14 Pro activated. That means you are St. Elon's Fire.
Yep.
And then at the end, we've got Tasia Gray discusses her latest YouTube video, which you guys are thinking you're like a Brangelina now, which was unsuccessful due to its premature release. She also shares a brief farewell message.
Happens to lots of videos.
Before she goes on hiatus. And then lastly, the monks of St. Elon's Abbey in North Carolina perform a spectacular firewalking ritual in honor of their patron saint. The event is both awe-inspiring and dangerous and is sure to leave spectators in like, what does that even, like, I need to go back to that episode. So rest assured, AI still got a ways to go with summarizing YouTube videos. So we got a little time yet.
Fantastic.
I don't know. I'm an app developer now.
I think we have to run all of our videos through that and then just do a dramatic reading of a little bit each.
Agreed.
Wow.
Pardon me. All right. So let's move on to there's something that's just taken the internet by storm. And just the last couple of days, we're seeing people post images of themselves all over Facebook. And I want to know if Tasia, that you have partaken in the Lensa AI data mining experiment yet. As
right.
The skeptics might claim that we've seen things before where face apps, people, it's like, oh, it's just mining your data, blah, blah, blah. So tell us a little bit about Lensa AI, Tasia, and how you feel about it.
You mean, have I tried the app that is asking for permission to access my camera roll, and have I uploaded 20 of my photos to this app and let them pull and do whatever they want to do with my image? No, I haven't.
I'm shocked.
But anyway, I know. It's an app, technically, so you could download it for free. You upload, 10 to 20 images, and then it generates...
It costs you between $4 and $8 to actually do the thing.
Yeah, to actually get your images, depending on if you've done a free trial or not, it costs between $4 to $8. But it generates AI images for you. So everybody has been doing this. And then slowly, after the first 4 or 5 days, you wait for the other shoe to drop about, who owns this app? Who creates it? What are they doing with the data? What are they doing with your likeness and your images? It's just, guys, we have to think about things before we just jump all in. You know what I'm saying?
So I guess one of the questions would be, how is that any different from our images floating all around the internet anyway? And if they really wanted to, they could just scoop them up from there, like so many of these other platforms are doing anyhow. What's the big deal? Great.
True.
So I've used Lensa for a while, but not Lensa AI. I haven't used this yet. I do use their other photo app, Prisma, which is basically just using AI to put filters onto the image. And they do send the image up to their server, hash them back down to you as the updated version. And you need the subscription to get HD. Otherwise, it's just
potato can.
I don't know, but yeah, but they're all filtered images anyway, so you're not looking for the beautiful sharpness. Who is the developer on this? Prisma Labs. So like I said, I've used their apps before, and I've been very happy with. And I remember checking into it and going, yeah, I don't think there's too much sketch here. But hearing the 20 images, I think the 20 images is because they want to show you all the wonderful things they can do with it.
And they're training the model, right, to figure out what your face actually is, as opposed to a potato.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm Irish, look like a potato, but looking at this, I remember there weren't many privacy concerns before, but now that you've kind of brought this up again, I'm curious to know if they've changed hands. So I'm going to take a look and do some digging on this one.
Due diligence, just like we were talking about when joining a new social platform, doing a little due diligence. So we know some yes. What is their revenue model?
So personal branding. Oh no, that kind of branding. No.
One of the examples.
I just think it's sorry, I just think it's another thing of I just, again, caution people, no matter what app or whatever you're doing online. And I'm always the first to say, we walk around with tiny computers in our pockets. So if you have something to hide and you're a terrible person, you're going to be found out. That's not my problem here. My thing is, it's just everybody jumps on oh, what's this? And it's this FOMO thing of I got to do this, and everybody's doing this, and oh my God, and I want to make my image like that too. And it's just take a breath and check it out for yourself and see if you're comfortable with that. And just like you're saying, do your due diligence and say, okay, I am comfortable uploading these images or giving this app access to my camera roll or whatever it might be. But it's so easy. I'm not going to get off topic, but I am just going to mention the whole TikTok thing about even the director of the FBI has been get off of TikTok. They are tracking you. they are using your precise location, and we don't know why yet. And it's freaking out the director of the FBI. And so it's just stuff like that, where it's before everybody just clamors to the next big thing, just take a minute and be okay, here's the pros and cons list. And maybe I'll, because why? I could just sketch, get somebody to sketch
72 hours,
that.
take a cold shower.
Yeah, I get somebody to sketch you that. You know what I mean? You don't have to make an AI generated. I don't know. So
it's a lot cheaper.
Think of it like a Tinder date, right? Yes, you swiped right. Should you really go on that date? Maybe check them out first.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Maybe.
So some of the examples that we've been seeing coming across our social networks are from people we know and respect, fellow tech people, our mutual friends and past and or current colleagues, such as Mike Agrabo. He posted a bunch of things, versions of himself using Lensa on Facebook. John Beeler, whose Twitter account, which is public, so that's why I'm sharing this here. John's been experimenting quite a lot with Midjourney, doing all sorts of different AI art there, which has been kind of neat to see the results as Midjourney has been improving. And John ran himself through Lensa and posted about 70 self-portraits there. But just the one that he chose as his avatar, it's like, that's a pretty cool look. I mean, that's definitely John, but it's like an artist painted him, and like like cool. Like, I mean, I get the appeal here, and you could all the different versions and permutations that it can generate.
Are we worried?
Say again?
Are we worried that this is actually going to cause some like self-image issues like Instagram has? Because if I do something like that of myself, I'm gonna like, I look nowhere near that badass. Can I go to the gym? Can I get somebody to go cover me in oil paint? Like, what are we doing here? I feel like we're gonna have some self-image issues because the computer thinks I look way better than I do in that kind of stuff.
So another take, or not another take, but another tool that you can play with to explore the power of this AI renaissance that we're seeing is a little something called character AI, and is more, I guess, diversified version of something we're going to be talking about in a minute that is really taking the world by storm at the moment. And what character AI does is you can visit it at beta.character.ai, and they're basically chatbots based on different individuals. Some may be fictional individuals, like totally new, or based on fictional individuals from the past, or based on historical individuals. So you could you could click on one. We can click on Plato, for example, and ask Plato a question and say, like, how did Socrates die? Which was, from what we understand, was Plato's mentor. And we will get a little blurb once it's thought about it. My teacher Socrates died by drinking hemlock, a poison. I witnessed his death along with other students, and he asked us to carry his last words to Athens. Crito, my friend, we owe a ransom to Hades. He was accused of impiety as he taught that gods do not exist. I was then condemned to death for teaching the same beliefs, but I had escaped before my death. I am so very sad about his death. Here we are, talking to a historical figure, a philosopher, and it's kind of wild. Some of this.
Yeah. Just let people die.
So there's, someone's created an Elon Musk version, a Tony Stark version, an Alan Turing version, a general psychologist. There's an unusually high number of anime characters in there, which is
yeah, I wonder why.
Yes, maybe Sigmund Freud, the Sigmund Freud AI can answer some questions about that. Wonder Woman. Even.
Do you remember back in the Sound Blaster, back in the early days, they had a voice synthesis tool called Dr. Spatzo?
Refresh us on that quickly before we gotta let Tasia go. Yeah.
So it was a synthesis tool where you could basically talk about your personal problems, and it used the voice synthesizer back in, this is like the Sound Blaster 16 days, and I am Dr. Spatzo, I am here to help you, and it had phrases where if it recognized keywords, it would spit things back at you. Let me see if I can. We'll talk about it next show, but this is Dr. Spatzo for Web3.
And
awesome.
What we've seen quite a lot of in the last couple of days is something called Chat GPT, which is a generalized chatbot that you can log in. You can get a free account. Just say you're an individual, and it's released by OpenAI, and you can have entire conversations with it about stuff. Ask it questions, specific or general, and it will tell you what it thinks. Sometimes it gets things wrong, certain historical details, but I asked it about the causes of World War I and World War II, and it got those pretty dead on. It's even it's so sophisticated that, and to be clear, it doesn't actually know anything. It is answering based on a probabilistic algorithm based on all the information it's ingested in the past. But what some clever individual figured out is that they managed to build a virtual machine inside Chat GPT. So they created like a virtual Linux instance So Linux being, open source operating system. So imagine running Windows or the Mac OS inside a chatbot, and they started browsing around into a totally artificial file system inside this chatbot and tried to run commands. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But the crazy thing is, it's like, there's no actual virtual machine here. This is just the chatbot replying in a way that thinks it makes sense based on what it's ingested from all the information that's absorbed through the internet.
It's like, it's running is this even real life? It's a simulation.
Exactly. And of course, the natural extension of that is that they tried to create an instance of Linux inside the instance of Linux.
Yes.
It's like, yo, dog, I heard you like Linux. So I put a Linux in your Linux so you can chat with your chat.
This is awesome. The great news is it also means that we're not real. So this is fun.
Well, that's the good news, I suppose. Okay, Tasia, we know you gotta pop off very soon here, but did you know?
Yep.
Did you know that Apple Music is getting a karaoke mode?
Yeah.
Are you as excited as Gray and I are?
Sing myself to sleep tonight. Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
Because as SingStar has been deprecated over the last couple of years from PlayStation, I've been hoping to find another platform. And this could be it. We're not getting the videos yet, but we're getting the lyrics and access to all the Apple Music library. This could be, next time you come to town, Tasia, we got to give this a test run because, Gray and I will be practicing ahead of time.
I'm 100% in.
Okay.
Start learning your Taylor songs now, boys.
Oh,
like I haven't had Midnights on repeat.
Shake it off. Okay. Another very quick Apple-related thing. There was an article. Someone went scuba diving with the Apple Watch Ultra using the Oceanic Plus app. I just wanted to include this because, Gray, you went scuba diving with the Apple Watch Ultra.
Yes.
Not using the Oceanic Plus app, but how did it go? Did it survive? Was it actually usable with the gloves and so on?
Very usable. So I didn't wear gloves down there. I wore this directly on my wrist with my wetsuit rolled up. Salt builds up inside the crown, so you got to wash that off. You should be washing your gear off anyway. And the Depth app is cool on the watch. The data that you get into health afterwards, super, super hard to read. So you got to kind of basically look for your depths. Even without Oceanic, this is awesome. With Oceanic, it's going to be great. And for $129 for the year, you can have up to 5 people with that subscription. So I'm stoked for it. Right now, I get to be a solo diver, but who knows? I'll find some diving friends who have these too.
So this is definitely a must-have for you and your future dives.
So honestly, I'm stoked for it. I'm contemplating, like, as soon as it comes out, zip down to Roatan, see my friend Chris, and we're gonna go do a little bit of diving.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost there. Picks of the week. Tasia, did you put a pick in the show? The rundown?
I did. I put in This Is Life with Lisa Ling, and the reason I put that in is not that it's a new show or anything, but it's a new season that she has out, and it's actually going to be the final season, which is a massive bummer. She was the longest running female-led documentary series on CNN, and CNN has axed basically like most of their original programming for budget cuts. So I'm hoping
they said they're trying to also like pull the Fox audience. That makes sense.
I think she'll hopefully get picked up with another network.
So what sort of topics does she cover in this documentary series?
I mean, you name it, but like the start of this season, as an example, she covered some really interesting robot technology and how people are using robots for company, so to speak.
Like personal companions?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
But she is exceptional at humanizing every topic and every person. And I mean, over the years, she has covered the gamut from like crazy Q conspiracy theory people to robots made for companionship. You know what I mean? Like to the second or third episode I just watched was called Tiger Queens, and it was like this whole follow-up of, we all got enamored with Tiger King, but then like we kind of lost sight of the animal cruelty and like what the heck happened to these animals and these tigers and like what regulations were put in place. And it's really cool. It's like, she goes to like a couple sanctuaries that mostly are women run. And yeah, it was just it's fascinating, and she does such a good job of connecting with everybody. And I just wanted to shout her out because she's one of the best journalists of our time.
And so that you can watch on CNN, and would it be archived on their website too, do you figure?
I believe it is on their streaming as well. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It used to be. Cool. I assume their new season is. Yeah.
I love hearing about things that I've never even heard of before. Speaking of which, Gray's pick of the week is a book.
Yeah. So this is a book about Jay Dilla. I think it's James Witt. This is his full name. Hip hop producer. This goes back to Detroit, mid 80s, up until his untimely death at the age of 32 from a blood infection or blood disease. Guy basically changed the way that we see and hear music now. You know, he had an Akai MPC 60, which was one of the first, mechanical drum machine synthesizers. And at the time, music, electronic music was recorded to the clock, and it was quantized. Quantized means to snap to the beat. And when people started hearing the stuff that he did, it didn't make sense because it didn't sound like a machine. And so basically what had happened is taken all of these separate tracks and quantized them individually. This technique has changed how classical musicians play classical music now. So it's just like this pervasive influence on music. The cool thing about the book, chapter 1 is about his life. Chapter 2 is about the music theory that surrounded that. And it goes all the way through the book that way and shows you visually kind of what it was you'd be hearing if you were listening to it. Incredible book. I'm not done it yet, but absolutely loving it so far. So yeah, Dilla time.
Nice. My pick is kind of on theme for today's episode, and it's hard to believe this movie is 21 years old. Production was started.
You can legally drink in most states.
Exactly. Haley Joel Osment, he's grown up now. So AI, artificial intelligence, which the production was commenced by Stanley Kubrick, who I believe he died during production, and Steven Spielberg was tasked with finishing the movie. And it was remarkable for its time. The effects were wild. And it was an intriguing portrayal of artificial intelligence in the form of companions, like Tasia mentions, including some of.
Hello, Joe. What do you know?
Yeah, exactly. Starring Jude Law as well. And one of the things that I liked about the movie is that it kept going. Like, it could have ended in like 2 or 3 spots, and then it goes into the future and it goes further and further, and you see a little bit what happens to this Haley Joel Osment's character, this young android boy in the future. And it's like, what? And it's like, people thought, oh, it's too long. It's like, I love it. It's like more bang for the buck. And also, then what happens? You know what's going to happen? We're going to show you. And then we're going to show you a bit more. So
it's the opposite of the mystery box.
Exactly. So it holds a special place in my heart. And I'm going to be rewatching it soon, see how it holds up with going through today's lens. I wonder if there's any problematic stuff in there, but I guess,
I don't think so.
We'll see.
Giant floating moon, no.
The last couple of days, decades, that is. All right. Any project, Gray, do you have something to share? I didn't see a link.
Really quick, so I don't have to talk about it too much. I just got the Elgato face cam. I've got a huge upgrade coming to my streaming setup. So the HD60X for streaming video games, and this for talking to you guys. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to showing you guys a little bit more of what I'm doing with that.
We'll have a breakdown of the gear in a future episode. Love it. Tasia, you've got a video for us this week, which was inspired by our favorite fruit company.
Yes, Apple. It's the best iOS and Mac apps and games of 2022, basically. So every year Apple does their App Store winners, and I run through them all. And then at the end, I always throw in like the top 10 most downloaded free apps of the year, which is always kind of fun.
All right. So there's a lot of apps that they talk about, or that they featured, and a lot that you talk about there. How many of those apps have you actually used yourself? Because I took a look at this list and I'm like, I don't think I've tried any of these, because I don't download a lot of new apps anymore. And like back in the old days, it's like, app. But now there's so much. It's like, what else do I need? So what's your take on that?
I have 2 now, actually, from researching this list. And the one is the water llama one, to try to help me drink more water. It's not really working, guys. It works fine, but I'm still not drinking as much as I should. And then the other one is the Locket one, which is really fun. It's a widget that you can like sit on your home screen or wherever you want. And then like your family and friends, it's almost like Be Real, but only with like your close family and friends. I think you can have up to 10 people, and you can just like send like a snapshot photo to each other with a little caption of like what you're doing in that moment. And then you can respond with emojis or whatever. It's just like a fun way for me to like, oh, there's my niece or there's my nephew, you know, whatever.
And do you trust them with your photos of these intimate moments of your life? You did your due diligence?
I mean, I'm not taking photos of me on the crapper, so
unlike Lenza, which, you know, we're all doing. Crapper photos. All right.
Help.
Tasia, where can people find more of your handiwork?
You can go to youtube.com/Tasia Custodi. Or TasiaCustodi.com. That's fine too.
Hooray! And you can find out more about us at momentus.tv/links. We did it. We got there.
Woo!
And Tasia's only half pumpkin. Great to see you too next week. A shout out to our good friend Will. Hopefully we'll have him back next week. Things seem to be getting better on the home front, which is good news. Keep them in your thoughts. And we hope that your week is truly momentous.